welcome to another edition of ROX Network. Here we have a review and, following this, an interview with Ghosts of Sunset. You may not have heard of them, but we believe you soon will. Essentially, Ghosts of Sunset consists of two guys who share a passion for rock and roll. They are John Merchant, who's vocals and electric guitar, and Todd Long, who's a bassist. They're supported throughout their recordings with a wide range of musicians, including Johnny Monaco from Enough's Enough and Tim Mosher from Junkyard. So they've obviously got the attention of the hard rock Illuminati, if you like. They did an EP called Headed West, which, in a way, in their own words, celebrated the 80s ethos, the whole rock and roll, the hedonism, the party atmosphere of the 1980s hard rock scene, particularly, of course, in LA. To follow on from that, their new album, No Saints in the City, explores the darker side of how the 80s excess affected those involved. We lost some pretty heavy duty musicians in the 80s, and then later on, through their excesses during the 80s, there was a lot of tragedy in amongst all the glam and glitz of the hair metal scene. And Ghosts of Sunset have chosen to explore this on their new album, and also some personal feelings of their own and things that they've gone through in life. So this is quite a personal album for them. We love it, and we strongly recommend you go out and hear it, especially the lead single No Saints in the City itself. And there is a ballad that follows which is very touching, which is If You're Not Coming Home. We are going to hear from them very shortly, but check the album out. You won't regret it.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. I get a bit confused when people say good morning to me because I'm British and we know what we're like. We can't think of anything other than British summertime. Not that we ever have a summer. So yes, a very good morning to you.
Well, thank you.
Thanks for attending the interview. Really good of you guys.
Thanks for having us.
Is it okay if I record it? Because I've got a brain like a sieve set up.
Sure.
Yep. And my name's not Emerson, by the way. It says Emerson right there.
Oh yeah. I had to see. That's how observant I am. Right. Shall we kick off then?
Sure. Absolutely.
Right. First of all, Ghosts of Sunset are a new entity to us people who live in caves in Wolverhampton and in the UK. Tell us a bit about Ghosts of Sunset.
We started, Todd and I have been making music together for probably, over 30 years. And what had happened is I actually had I was out jogging one day of all things. And you remember the VH1 show Behind the Music, where they would go behind the scenes, right? And I thought to myself that nobody had really done any sort of a concept record based on that sort of story, these band stories. So I got home and I called Todd, again, a lifelong friend and musical partner. And I said, hey, I've got this idea. Let's do a concept record based on, these 1980s hair metal bands. And 24 hours later, Todd sent me the music to our first single and we were off and running. So I took that to mean he was excited about it too.
Yeah.
And so we got started like that. And it was really just, we wanted to, it was fun. It was a fun project for us musically. Our roots are in that kind of music. So, I don't claim to know much, but that genre of music and that era is something that Todd and I both are pretty well versed in. So that's how we got it started, you know.
It is. It's fascinating listening because, speaking of someone who is old enough to remember the 80s, unfortunately, you do capture that sound, that vibe of the time really well.
Thank you.
So did you go into a studio to record it, or was you one of these kind of digital projects?
It was all back and forth via the internet. I have a little home studio, so does John, and then we asked some of our favorite guitar players from that era to join us. And you know, if you like the song, please put a solo on it. If you don't, that's cool too, you know. So it was all via file transfer and stuff.
It's brilliantly put together, then, I have to say, because you as they say, you can't see the join.
Yeah, good. That's great to hear. You know, we were just really lucky that we hit this idea at the right time, and I say the right time very hesitantly, but we had a lot of these folks who were not touring because we were in the middle of this pandemic. And so we had access to these artists who might be busy otherwise. And that helped things along too. I mean, I have to be honest, it helped us cope with the lockdown and the pandemic and the craziness. You know, it was an opportunity to escape that for a while and make some rock and roll, which is what folks like us do. You know, when we're faced with those situations, we handle our stress through rock and roll, you know.
Absolutely. And there is no better way of handling stress, I don't think, really. I mean,
yeah, right. None of us really know what we're doing with it, you know. I can listen to a Faster Pussycat record and I can figure it out. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah. It brings back the memories. It brings back all the lazy hot summers that we had back then in the 80s, and the whole kind of, I don't know, there was a devil may care attitude in the music scene, which is not really there at the moment.
It was a different time, you know. You know, the 80s, like you're saying, when you're old enough to have lived through it, it was definitely a different time. It was, I think you're right. I think it was, you know, there was money floating around in the 80s. Certainly, you know, that music scene exploded. You know, the 80s hair metal scene out in Los Angeles, California, really exploded. And it was, you know, it was a lot of these American bands taking what we got from our British counterparts, you know, bands like Slade and Mott the Hoople and Bowie and T-Rex. And, you know, those influences are really the start of this thing, you know, was what was called glitter in the 70s, right? It's, you know, they always come up with a new name for it so they can sell it to a new generation, but you know, it's just glitter rock, you know.
Well, it was in some way. We sent glitter and glam rock over to you guys, and then you put some American your own glitz and glamour on and your own production values, and you sent it back to us, and we saw it as a whole new thing.
Right. Which is, haven't we been doing this since, you know, the beginning of time, right? We've been doing this forever, you know. It's the greatest thing about music is how it kind of transcends those geographic locations. And, you know, I've told everybody who'll listen, you know, I wouldn't be here today without a little band called the Beatles, you know, so I want to thank you guys for that.
On behalf of the Beatles in Liverpool, you're very welcome.
All right, good. We appreciate it, man.
Well, we certainly appreciate the stuff that comes back our way as well, because without you guys, we'd be stuck with Oasis. So,
hey, well, we're big Oasis fans too.
Guilty.
Yeah, we're there.
I do apologize. No offense intended.
None taken.
So you've called the LP and the lead single "No Saints in the City." Is there a reference to how underneath all that sort of glitz and glamour of the LA scene, there was a coldness?
Yeah, for sure. And you know, No Saints in the City, which is the full length album that's coming.
Yeah.
The EP was the concept record, which came before. No Saints in the City is definitely what you're hearing there is some of the darkness. We definitely took that idea from the EP, the glitz and glamour, if you will. And then on No Saints in the City, we sort of flipped it over and looked at the underbelly a little bit, you know. Like you said, there was a darkness there, and you know, we lost a lot. That scene made a lot of stars and a lot of household names. It also claimed a lot of lives, you know. It was, like you said, it was a different time. And so, yeah, I think on No Saints in the City, we took that and flipped it upside down and went, okay, let's get down to the dirt a little bit and see what happened there too, you know.
And it certainly works because you have sort of got both sides of the coin then, because it is easy to see through rose tinted glasses at times and say it was all rock and roll, it was all great, and then, as you say, we did lose some absolute legends during the 80s.
Yes,
through
we
drugs,
did.
through just general self-abuse, really. I mean, some of them really gave 110% and it cost them.
Right.
Which is a real shame.
Well, you know, and I think that's the thing is when you're making that, you're making that emotional investment into something like music, you know, that's a part of your soul. There's also that, you know, I think all these artists from, Elvis Presley to Bono to John Bon Jovi to whatever, the common thread is there's always a little bit of insecurity there, you know, and sometimes to overcome that insecurity, the only thing you can do is, you know, is numb yourself, medicate yourself. And then some of those folks, you know, just played it how they'd seen it played before. You know, I grew up on 80s rock. And when I went back, you know, then you start learning about Mark Bolan and you start learning about, you know, artists who came before the John Bonhams and Keith Moons and Jimi Hendrixes and Janis Joplin's. And you just start to see that, that the thing, if you're not careful and smart with it, it'll eat you up. It'll eat you up. And so No Saints in the City, definitely you will hear some of that in there. You will hear the flip side of that coin, like you said, which is well put. We turned that coin over for No Saints in the City and started to look at some of the darker stuff.
Yeah,
we even went
absolutely.
to a little of the punkier side, like Sex Pistols on a song called Tonight, and that's a lot really street feel to that song. And I don't know, after the 80s scene died, I never got into the grunge thing, so I went back and found the Sex Pistols and found a love for punk rock after the 80s scene died. So there's an element of that in there too, along with the ballads.
Yeah, absolutely. The second single is If You're Not Coming Back. Who's that about?
It started off, to be honest with you, it started off as a title I was kicking around. A couple of years ago, I'd lost my mother. And it was just her and I growing up. My father was gone pretty early. And it was, at first it started as the idea of, you know, grasping the fact that truly she was not coming back. You know, I would not see her in the physical realm again. And then thinking about that scene, I sort of kind of decamped that down to a story of addiction and loss. You know, the loss thread goes through the whole thing. The addiction thing was just a storyline that, like we were just talking about, we've heard time and time again, you know, and that realization, you know, that realization that maybe you weren't paying close enough attention and while that was happening, you know.
Yeah, I get you. I do get you. I mean, obviously, you must have really enjoyed the 80s music to have been so inspired to do this. I'm going to pin you down now. Who was your favorite from that period?
Go ahead, Todd.
My favorite was, well, I'm a huge Kiss is my favorite band, but they were more 70s. So when it came to the 80s, when Poison came onto the scene, I was all about that. They had the great show, and I don't know what it was about the look that I liked, but for some reason I gravitated towards that. And then I had them hanging in my bedroom, and I'm pretty sure my mom and dad thought that I was swinging the wrong way. but Poison for me.
About you, John?
I kind of gravitated toward a little grittier, dirtier, bluesy rock part because there's something in me that's wired to the Faces and the Stones and early Hanoi Rocks, and so I really got into that style. So for me, it was bands like Faster Pussycat and L.A. Guns, and you could hear the Faces and the Sweet, and I liked the early Motley Crue, that punk rock kind of feel. I liked all that stuff, but for me, usually I can boil it down, and it kind of draws a line back to that bluesier rock and roll stuff that, again, that my heroes from England were playing, I loved the Exile on Main Street era Rolling Stones, and I loved the Faces, and so that you can get that 80s rock that takes so much heat now, that people dismiss. I've got people who love David Bowie, love Ziggy Stardust, love that. And yet they somehow can't reconcile that Poison had those same elements, or Faster Pussycat or LA Guns, or, they had those influences. And some people just can't get past it,
It seems almost as if the 80s became, well, it still is to some extent, a bit of a dirty word.
For sure.
And it's only really now that, I don't know what it's like in the US, but in the UK, there are a lot of retro tours going around. There's a lot of retro discos going around. And it's almost as if, okay, they were having a really good time, and why don't we have a good time?
Yeah, we should try that. That seems fun. Yeah. Right.
Smile once in a while. They might enjoy it.
Right. And that's what happens. You see music cycle like that. You're in the, you get throwback bands. You get, throughout the, not so much the 60s, but, even in the early 80s, England has always been pretty open to a retro feel, and I think of a band like the Stray Cats breaking first. They went over to England and broke. The rockabilly scene in England is huge and fantastic, and the States now have kind of gotten on board. I think people get a little bit older, and you get to an age where you don't have to really defend your music taste to anyone anymore. It's like, well, I'm here and this is what I listen to, and and I'd like to go out and hear it again. I want to see these bands live, and praise God, there's a market for it now. We can go out to a package tour and see Slaughter, LA Guns, Firehouse, Trickster, Rat, Poison, blah, blah. They're all out there playing. When there was an era they couldn't play at all.
No,
you just couldn't.
No.
So it's that cycle. I'm sure at some point, we'll see the cycle turn over again, and who knows, maybe the grunge sound will kind of come back.
Don't say that. I can't go through grunge again.
Or there was a golden era of Britpop. We're talking about Oasis. We're talking about Blur. We're talking about, we sent Kings of Leon over to England, and that's where Kings of Leon really broke big. I like a band called The Thrills.
Yeah.
The Thrills were huge overseas, and yet, they couldn't put a flag in American soil. So there's certain things that work geographically in different places, but I think ultimately it comes back to you start realizing who you are, and once you get comfortable with that, you go, all right, I'm a guy who likes Poison, and I want to see Poison.
Yeah, why not? Talking of live shows, are we going to see you guys live?
It's a logistical nightmare we're trying to get past.
Yes, I live in Florida and John lives in Michigan, and it's really just the two of us. So we'd have to put a band together, which isn't too hard to do, but a lot of it comes down to money and logistics. So
it'd be great to hear. You could do like an 80s theme stage show, just like the good old days.
That'd be fun.
They would be the best, and that's the thing is live rock and roll is where we that's what we've done. We've always played live. That's where you kind of cut your teeth in this game. So we want to play live. It's just, you also reach an age logistically where you're not really sleeping on people's floors anymore, and you're not in a, you can't sleep on the floor of the van anymore. And, yeah, we have to be smart about what we do.
Absolutely. Well, I keep my fingers crossed. I'll see some live dates, and in which case, ROX will certainly share them.
We hope so too. Yeah, we hope so too.
Are you guys involved in any other projects, or is this like your total love at the moment, and you don't want to do anything else?
I just play in a cover band down here right now, and I dabble in just writing for myself. Other than Ghost of Sunset, that's my main priority. But I just noodle around trying to write different things. I'm a huge 1975 fan. Thank you for that. So I don't know. I just write all the time. Whatever comes out. And if it's a Ghost of Sunset, then we send it back and forth.
Yeah, I do. I do some solo, singer-songwriter-y type stuff because I'm a big fan of that. Of the Neil Young and Bob Dylan and the band and stuff like that. And I play in some cover bands too. Ghost of Sunset is really, it's my band. I know that sounds crazy, but it's my band. It's Todd and I, but it's where my heart is. And when we're writing, the first thing I'm listening for in any song is it a Ghost of Sunset song? If it is, we start working on that right away. And if it's not, well, it can be filed away for something else. But this Ghost of Sunset thing is certainly my passion. It's what I feel strongly about. And I think what I'm most qualified to do. I have the deepest background in this style of music. I grew up on it. I love it. I followed it. I've read the books, I bought the records, I bought the t-shirts. This is where I hold my PhD, I think, in 1980s hair metal.
I can think of no better qualification.
Exactly. Well, exactly. Dr. Hairband.
Yeah. So Dr. Hairband, what's your feelings on modern metal as it stands at the moment? And you can be as harsh or as lovely as you like.
Some of it I like. I was never going to be a real heavy guy. I wasn't even in the era of the Slayers and Metallicas and Venoms, and it wasn't where I lived. Like I said, I was a blues rock guy, the Faces, that sort of thing. But recently there's still stuff from Avenged Sevenfold, Lamb of God, Clutch. There's bands I like. I love. Of course, a guy like me, the Struts were custom made for me. I love the Struts. I love Tuck Smith and the Restless Hearts. I love the Great Affairs. So I think it's healthy. I think there's a lot of cool stuff out there. I like to say it's really exciting and disheartening at the same time, because it's exciting. I can hear a band like the Great Affairs, who I'm a big fan of, and I go, man, this music's great. This is a great record. And then I think about how many people have heard that record. And then I go, oh man, so I've got this great record. There's 10 other great records that I know of that a lot of people haven't heard. That's really exciting. And it's also like, geez, now I'm going to put another one out into the world. I'm going to put my own record out there. So there's still great music being made. There's still audiences for it. It's just the audience is the business is so different. So, for folks like us who have been around a while, we have to adapt to the new business model, which sometimes is cool. I mean, it's a lot easier to make a Facebook event and click create than get in the car and go to the copy shop and get your pile of flyers and go stick them on cars at the mall. But it's also a lazier game now. It's a little less work intensive because everything is you have access to, we don't have to drive to the radio station for an interview. We don't have to put paper flyers on cars. I don't have to sell tickets. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It can all happen in cyberspace, and I can reach a great number of people. But it can create some laziness too, where you just go click. All right, I'll share, and you're not interacting. So it's a new game, it's a new business.
It is. Yeah. How about you? I mean, do you listen to a lot of the new stuff? What do you think?
There's a few bands that I enjoy, like Crazy Licks, and a couple of bands like that. LA Cobra. I'm not a big fan of like I wouldn't say like rap metal, but that's older. But I don't know. There's this like new rock thing that's coming out that I just can't get into. But as long as it has melody and some catchiness to it, then I'll probably like it.
Fair enough.
I don't know. Who knows?
Who knows? It's all at the end of the day, it's all rock and roll anyway. But
amen.
Yeah. And on that note, I will thank you very much, gentlemen, for taking the time for the interview. And
thank you.
Keep on rocking, dudes.
Do the same thing.
Appreciate it.
Will do. Bye bye, and thank you.
God bless.
Town isn't pretty to a pretty face. They saw you coming a mile away. Somebody told you you could start again. After so much losing, you were due to win. They fooled you once, shame on them. 'Cause there ain't no saints in the city tonight, and you're gonna have to face the truth. There ain't no saints in the city tonight, and no one's looking out for you. These dirty streets hold no pity. There's no saints in the city. Left him sleeping and you made a break. Saw your chance to finally get away. You ran straight into the dark unknown. Rise or fall, you're gonna do it alone. He fooled you once, shame on him. 'Cause there ain't no saints in the city tonight, and you're gonna have to face the truth. There ain't no saints in the city tonight, and no one's looking out for you. These dirty streets hold no pity. There's no saints in the city. You hear the screams, you're having trouble sleeping. Look around at the company you're keeping. Never dreamed what it takes to make it. It's your chance, you're gone.